Chair calls up H.R. 3699 and asks the clerk to report.
H.R. 3699, a bill to prohibit states or local governments from prohibiting or limiting the connection, reconnection, modification.
Without objection, the
installation-
first reading of the bill is dispensed with, and the bill will be open for amendment at any point. So ordered. Does anyone seek to be recognized on the bill?
Mr. Chairman.
For purpose, the gentleman from New York seek to be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We wish to speak on H.R. 3699.
You're recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the bill.
As we begin the full committee consideration of the Energy Choice Act, let's remember what this bill is fundamentally about. It's protecting affordability, preserving choice, preventing government from banning energy options that American families, businesses, schools, hospitals, and first responders depend on every single day. This legislation doesn't tell states what energy they must use. It stops them from telling Americans what energy they cannot use. Because when governments start banning energy sources, they don't make energy any cheaper. They make it more expensive. And the numbers couldn't be clearer. According to the National Association of Home Builders, full electrification mandates add between $15,000 and $22,000 for just the construction costs on a new home. That comes at a time when 75% of American households cannot afford a median-priced home. And every $1,000 increase in construction costs prices out roughly 140,000 families. And after families move in, the monthly bills tell an even harsher reality. A typical household using natural gas for winter heat pays about $602. The same home forced to rely solely on electric heat pays over $1,000, a 42% cost increase every single year, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration's winter fuel outlook. Even NYSERDA, New York's own energy authority, acknowledges that converting an existing home to full electrification costs between $18,000 and $28,000 in retrofit costs and panel upgrade costs alone. These affordability problems aren't limited to homeowners. Schools, businesses, farms, and hospitals, they face even steeper climbs. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, heating a classroom with electricity costs 85% more than using natural gas. Restaurants forced to switch from gas to electric cooking face nearly a 3 times higher annual energy cost, according to the EPA. And farmers are hit especially hard. Nearly 80% of farm operations rely on propane, natural gas, or diesel for grain drying, greenhouse heating, irrigation pumps, and livestock protection. And switching to electric can double or triple those energy costs during harvest or cold snaps, leading to increased prices at the grocery store. And for hospitals, nursing homes, emergency shelters, facilities that cannot afford to lose power when lives are on the line, the Department of Energy's resilience assessment shows that electric-only backup power can be 10 to 15 times more expensive to install and maintain than propane, diesel, or natural gas systems. Energy bans don't lower costs. They eliminate the most affordable options first. And when government removes choices, families, small businesses, and critical institutions are the ones left paying more for less reliability. And let's be clear. Protecting energy choice does not strip states or localities of their authority. They still control siting, permitting, zoning, land use, safety, environmental review, every single tool that they have today. What this bill prevents is something different: the outright banning of a lawful energy source sold in interstate commerce that is essential to regional reliability and economic stability. When one state restricts an energy source, it doesn't just affect their residents, it spills across borders. It disrupts regional grids, and it drives up costs for families hundreds of miles away. That is exactly why the Constitution protects interstate commerce, to stop one jurisdiction from imposing energy policies that harm others. The Energy Choice Act protects affordability, reliability, and the rights of Americans to decide what energy works best for them. And when government bans choices, people pay prices. And that's what this bill prevents. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Is there discussion on the bill? The gentlelady from California, is your recognition on the bill? Ms. Matsui, yours? Okay, I'm sorry. I was told.
Wait a minute.
I was told. I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman from Louisiana, seek recognition on the bill. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. Mr. Chairman, I must voice strong opposition to H.R. 3699, the so-called Energy Choice Act, which is anything but. For all of the rhetoric in Congress about smaller government, states' rights, and empowering local decision-making, this bill does the exact opposite. It is a sweeping, big government federal power grab that strips state and local governments of their core authorities to keep their residents safe. This bill would prohibit cities, counties, and states from adopting or enforcing any building codes, safety standards, or local policies that directly or indirectly affect access to an energy source, whether it's gas, propane, hydrogen, gasoline, or electricity. This is about all the implications. Think about all the implications here. That language can be so broad that it can override everything from fire safety codes to resilience standards, to decisions about how communities rebuild after disasters, something that can be incredibly detrimental in my district in South Louisiana. Local officials know the needs of their communities best. They are the first people residents call when there's an explosion, a carbon monoxide leak, a pipeline accident, a wildfire, or a grid failure. But under this bill, those same local officials would be prevented from providing protection in place that fit their community. This bill doesn't create choice. It takes choice away from the people on the ground who understand their communities and their risk best. It is also important to underscore that this bill could raise energy costs for families that are already stretched thin. State utility commissions exist for one reason: to protect ratepayers from unnecessary or unreasonable utility spending. But if a commission wants to reject a costly, wasteful, or obsolete infrastructure project, this bill would stop them. When these commissions can't do their jobs, those costs don't disappear. They get passed straight to the customer in higher monthly energy bills. At a time when families are already struggling with higher energy costs, Congress should strengthen ratepayer protections, not handcuff the very entities responsible for holding utilities accountable. There's nothing small government about a federal law that preempts local control, undermines safety standards, handcuffs state regulators, and blocks communities from choosing the energy system that works best for them. If anything, this bill is Washington at its worst, imposing a one-size-fits-all mandate on every community in America. The truth is simple. Local leaders, not federal politicians, know how to keep their communities safe. They know what infrastructure makes sense for them. They know what risks exist. They know how to balance reliability, affordability, and public health. This bill strips that judgment away and concentrates power in Washington instead of in the communities that know it best. Trust our local government. That's why they're there. For these reasons, I urge my colleagues to reject this bill, protect local authority, protect public health and safety, protect ratepayers, and vote no on this legislation. I yield.
The gentleman yields back, and the chair recognizes Mr. Carter from Georgia to speak on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'm proud to co-sponsor H.R. 3699, the Energy Choice Act, and I thank my friend, Representative Langworthy, for introducing this bill. This common-sense legislation prohibits states and local governments from banning energy service connections, modifications, or expansions based on the source of energy that is to be delivered. The American public deserves affordable, reliable energy. Limiting what sources of energy can be used is foolish. In a time where AI is on the rise and electricity demand is forecast to skyrocket across the country, we must look at all of the above solutions for energy. We truly need every electron available to power our growth. Top-down green new energy regulations will halt growth and raise energy prices. H.R. 3699 ensures that American citizens and businesses have the right to choose what sources of energy best fit their needs. I want to thank Representative Langworthy for introducing this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to vote for this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose is the gentlelady from, anyone speak on the bill? Gentlelady from California recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word and speaking. Thank you. As my colleagues have pointed out, the broad and vague wording of this bill would inadvertently eliminate many of the critical safety regulations that state and local governments use to protect our communities. In California and across the West, we know all too well that energy policy is a matter of life and death when it comes to wildfires. And because of this risk, we've given the California Public Utilities Commission the authority to order a public safety power shutoff during high-risk conditions to prevent power lines from sparking a catastrophic wildfire. Unfortunately, this bill is drafted so broadly it would prohibit public safety power shutoffs, putting communities across California at unnecessary and extreme risk. And it doesn't stop there. This same language will be used to attack emergency safety shutoffs during earthquakes. It could ban building codes that help prevent electrical fires. This is not a trivial matter. In California, we need every tool available to prevent deadly fires and keep families safe. This bill would rip those tools away and tie the hands of state and local officials who are working hard to keep us safe. I urge my Republican colleagues to put public safety ahead of the needs of their oil and gas buddies and oppose this bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman, anyone seek recognition to speak on the bill? The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to strike the last word. The Energy Choice Act, it restores balance in our energy policy. First, it protects energy choice. It ensures consumers decide how they heat their homes, cook their meals, and power their homes and businesses. The bill does not pick energy source winners and losers. It ensures energy access remains diverse and competitive. Why do we feel like we need this? Because across the country, in states like California and New York, they're pushing misguided bans on natural gas hookups and other reliable and affordable energy sources. So of course, the wealthy elites in these states, they can afford to virtue signal with their luxury policy beliefs. Why? Because they don't even look at their electric bills. You know who does? Regular middle-class families and businesses. So these top-down mandates force families into higher-cost options instead of choosing what works best for their needs and their budgets. And so for too long, our country has fallen victim to this radical environmentalism instead of rational environmentalism, where alarmist climate change worldview is divorced completely from reality. Because the truth is that cutting off energy options in an era where we need way more energy, not less, does nothing to help the environment and does everything to hurt regular Americans trying to pay their bills. That's why I urge my colleagues to support the Energy Choice Act to protect energy freedom, secure energy dominance for our country, and promote prosperity for our own people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Anyone speaking in discussion on the bill? The gentlelady from Texas, recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you so much, Chairman Guthrie. I move to strike the last word. Great, thank you. As co-chair of the Natural Gas Caucus, I understand how damaging arbitrary bans on energy sources can be to providers' ability to supply dependable, affordable energy. And as energy prices are projected to increase, as we've talked about repeatedly on this committee, and as extreme weather events that disrupt energy delivery become more common, as we've also discussed in this committee, it's really crucial that we on this committee and everyone in this Congress work to ensure that our energy system becomes more durable and can deliver the energy our constituents need. Arbitrary bans on resources do not serve this purpose, whether they're for traditional energy sources like oil and gas, or whether they're on renewables like wind and solar. And since President Trump's inauguration, he's led an unrelenting and pointless attack on renewable energy. In Texas, we have seen the devastating impacts of extreme weather events and a dramatic loss in energy supply. And my friends here from Texas know we all experienced it together during Winter Storm Uri, which I've talked about several times in this committee. We lost more than 200 Texans, one of them a little boy who froze to death in his bed not far from where I live. And I think it's really important to understand that we live in fear of the risk of grid failures. And that's why, one of the things that Texas has done in the last couple of years is connected power generation assets to the grid at record pace. It is the diversification of our resources on the grid that gives the grid flexibility and strength. This year, lots of different studies rank Texas as among the highest risk states for power outages over the summer, and yet, thanks to this really aggressive addition of battery storage and solar generation capacity, the grid managed the high demand without emergencies. So I sincerely hope that other states and local governments will see that the variety that we have in Texas of energy supply is a good model, maybe it is the model, for the benefits of an all-of-the-above energy strategy, which we talk about a lot on this committee. And so if we look at that and we avoid arbitrary bans on resources like the president has instituted, I think we'd all be much better off. But in this committee, it's our responsibility to ensure that our energy system is positioned to deliver and provide durable, affordable energy. And unfortunately, I think the bill that we're considering right now falls short of that goal. The amendments that were adopted in subcommittee actually made the bill more vague and ambiguous. And as it stands now, it really strips away state and local authority. Several of my colleagues have talked about that already today, but it takes away the authority for the people closest to the challenges, whether they are weather challenges or other challenges, to create safety standards for energy delivery that keep communities safe. And that's what they're there to do. As the bill's written, it could prevent local governments from enforcing local building, fire, and electrical safety codes, from ordering emergency shutoffs during wildfires, floods, or grid failures, and from regulating neighborhood gas lines to prevent leaks and explosions. And so, since these activities could be seen as limiting the use of energy, this bill could prevent local governments from keeping our communities safe. It also conflicts with established laws that rely on partnership with state authorities like the Clean Air Act and pipeline safety laws, creating a legal and regulatory framework, and that really creates a lot of uncertainty. So, as I see it, the president's approach to energy and the tariff policies are already creating extreme uncertainty and confusion for energy industry stakeholders. I think we're all hearing that in different ways. And adding to that confusion and adding to that uncertainty really isn't going to help deliver dependable, affordable energy that we need. So I hope the committee can come together and work on real solutions for these issues. We talked about them, we've had a lot of hearings on them, and I think that we know the issues we're facing. Certainly, we need to address them. Things like this bill don't help us move forward. Other things that we need to do can help us move forward and help our local governments keep our communities safe. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. Is there any discussion on the bill? Gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Langworthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's set the record straight. The Energy Choice Act does not trample over any local control over permitting, zoning, siting, or public safety. States and local governments still have full authority to decide where a project goes, how it's reviewed, what environmental standards it must meet, and whether an application is approved or rejected. They can deny a project for traffic impacts, noise, wetlands, height restrictions, community character. Every traditional land use and permitting rationale remains fully intact, as does the public safety components. What this bill prevents is something entirely different, a blanket ideological ban on an entire energy source that exists in interstate commerce. That's the key distinction. This legislation doesn't touch permitting. It doesn't touch zoning. It doesn't touch siting. It doesn't touch NEPA or state environmental review. Localities can still reject a solar project. They can still reject a wind turbine. They can still deny a pipeline or a substation if it violates zoning or environmental rules. What they can't do is outlaw the underlying fuel itself. Permitting authority stays with the states. Zoning authority stays with the localities. Land use authority stays exactly where it is today. The only thing that this bill stops is the use of bans to eliminate lawful, affordable, reliable energy sources and to force every family and business into a single, more expensive option. I may share some of the views of my colleague from Texas if I lived in Texas, but my state has decided to arbitrarily ban safe and reliable fuels that have created a life and death situation for people that live in my cold weather community. This is not preemption of local review. It is protection against energy and prohibition. I mean, and also on the idea of natural disaster being in danger here. I lived this in one of the harshest blizzards in my community, and as we see across upstate New York on a regular basis, that's what's created this dilemma for the people of the state of New York, where we had hurricane-force winds and 6 feet of snow all at once. And the grid went down and people froze to death in their homes. And now we have a state that in their infinite wisdom has banned future buildings having anything but fully electrical heat. Those people would have gotten a death sentence, and our death toll would have been 10, if not 100 times higher. So this is a life and death matter for my constituents and many constituencies across the United States of America. And I want to thank the gentlelady from Florida for yielding me her time, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. And further discussion on the bill. Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 5 minutes on the bill.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to, I appreciate my colleagues across the aisle. But my colleague from Georgia said that limiting sources of energy would be, quote, foolish. I agree. That's why I'm surprised when President Trump canceled Revolution Wind that Republicans were all silent on it. He even spoke to that we need an all-the-above strategy in energy production. We've had Secretary Wright here who has said he does not believe in all-the-above strategy. So when the administration's not here, you guys speak to the power and all-the-above strategy on energy production. When you have the opportunity to press them on why they're canceling offshore wind, why they're rolling back investments in renewable energy that create greater energy production, you have nothing to say. Even our colleague from Texas was critical of, quote, cutting off energy options. But that's exactly what the Trump administration's doing. So where is the criticism of the Trump administration when they are taking us in the wrong direction, limiting options that states like Rhode Island, New Jersey, North Carolina want to have? You guys are all silent then. We know that we need more energy production, but we need to press the administration to stop picking winners and losers like you suggest that they do. And an important reminder from my colleague from Texas was talking about New York and California and all these woke states. Texas must be the most woke state because 30% of their energy production comes from renewable energy. So why won't we want that across the country? It's just ridiculous. But I'm glad they're finally saying the right things. I hope they say it when the administration's here, and I hope they push back on all the harm that this administration is doing, not just when it's convenient. And then with that, I yield back.
Someone yields back. Further discussion on the bill. Gentlelady from Florida, seek recognition on the bill, or have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk.
So it's appropriate time for amendments. Since there's no further discussion, gentlelady has amendment at the desk. You report your amendment or identify the
Labeled
amendment.
MN_03. 03.
The clerk will report.
Amendment to the committee print for HR 3699.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes in support of the amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment seeks to address some of the very serious flaws with the bill. The bill is overly broad. It has a very disruptive preemption of local and state policies. It's a concerning threat to the health and safety of our neighbors back home. And it really does nothing to address lowering costs for people back home. It likely makes it worse. And I want to thank my colleagues on this side of the aisle who have spoken with great clarity, Mr. Carter, Ms. Matsui, Ms. Fletcher, Mr. Menendez, for laying out the flaws in the bill. My Republican colleagues have portrayed the bill as an effort to promote community energy choice, to push back against so-called gas bans. But if you read the text of the bill, in reality, this is much more complicated. There is no energy choice. That is a misnomer. The bill is a sweeping federal power grab that overrides state and local rights. It impedes safety standards, and it makes it harder for utility commissions to fairly assign cost. It's full of vague language that would upend decades of established practice meant to protect the public, and it will create chaos when they go to implement it. This bill would make our communities less safe. My neighbors in Florida know how quickly our local utilities must respond to emergencies like Hurricanes Helene and Milton, which devastated my community last year. So in many communities that face other catastrophes, whether it's floods or wildfires, grid failures, utilities will order shutoffs. But this bill could block cities and counties from doing that. And municipalities often have other protections to deny high-risk hydrogen or propane installations near homes and schools, hospitals, but this bill would block those protections. This bill could prevent local governments from enforcing local building, fire, and electrical safety codes. It could interfere with approving or citing new gas stations. And it could make it harder to regulate neighborhood gas lines to prevent leaks and explosions. You know, builders and inspectors, utilities all depend on stable federal regulation to provide clear rules. But if this bill removes those rules, local officials will not have the guidance they need to approve permits or conduct inspections. States will have to enforce other federal laws, like the Natural Gas Pipeline Safety Act and the Clean Air Act, but this bill will conflict with those provisions. So all of this creates too much confusion, and as a result, projects will be stalled and cost will go up for homeowners and businesses. Speaking of costs, let's look at the text of the bill. A state or local government may not adopt, implement, or enforce a law or regulation that prohibits or limits the connection, reconnection, modification, or access to an energy service based on the type or source of energy. We discussed this in the Energy Subcommittee. This creates a lot of problems. For example, this could prevent state utility regulators from setting certain electricity rates for data centers or allowing incentives for curtailable loads. That could lead to slower AI build-out and higher rates for everybody. So my amendment helps alleviate some of this confusion. It clarifies the bill's scope, but it would still outlaw state and local governments from direct prohibition of an energy service, like implementing a natural gas ban. It would make the bill do what the majority actually says that it does. My amendment would also explicitly preserve the authorities of local governments and regulators to implement energy rates and tariffs and the safety of energy infrastructure. These are common sense clarifications that we should all agree on. State and local leaders know how to keep their communities safe. We should trust them to do that, not tie their hands and take choices away from them. So if my friends across the aisle are serious about defending local control and public safety and fair, responsible energy governance, they should support my amendment. In the end, the American people want cleaner, cheaper energy, safe energy. Let's not move in the opposite direction through this bill and heap higher costs on families back home. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment, and I yield back my time.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there any discussion on the amendment? The gentleman from New York is recognized to speak on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word and speak in
Gentleman is
opposition.
recognized to speak on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, states do not lose a single ounce of their regulatory power under this bill, not one. The Energy Choice Act does not interfere with the state's ability to regulate utilities, prevent price gouging, hold rate cases, or protect consumers from unfair billing practices. States retain full authority over rate setting, utility commissions, service reliability standards, billing transparency, consumer protections, and emergency shutdown protocols. Every tool state regulators use today, they keep tomorrow. Public utility commissions will still be able to investigate abuses, enforce price caps during emergencies, crack down on predatory pricing, and regulate exactly how energy is delivered, billed, financed, and supplied. All of them remain untouched because this bill isn't about deregulating utilities. It's about stopping governments from banning entire energy sources based solely on what they are, not how safely or reliably they operate. Regulating for safety, pricing, reliability is constitutional and appropriate. Politically motivated fuel bans that distort interstate commerce are not. So yes, states can still regulate prices audit utilities, impose consumer protections, intervene during emergencies, enforce competitive rates, and order shutdowns when needed. Nothing in this bill changes any of that. The Energy Choice Act protects access to lawful energy. It does not deregulate it. It preserves every state-level authority that ensures transparency, oversight, affordability, and consumer protection. I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment because it is a distraction to the underlying legislation and unnecessary. This amendment would undermine the intent of this legislation to drive competition and to protect consumer choice to ensure lower costs for hardworking American families. States and localities across the country have responsibly enacted energy choice protections that ensure competition, and there has been no discernible effect on safety or rate schedules for the end-use sale of energy. In fact, states and localities that have enacted energy choice protections have seen lower energy costs for families and more affordable housing. The Energy Choice Act is critical to addressing affordability for the nation, and I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Anyone else seeking recognition on the amendment? Seeing none. Which page? You want a roll call? All right. We will now take a vote on this, and a roll call has been requested. So if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Latta? Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Griffith votes no. Mr. Bilirakis? Mr. Hudson? Mr. Carter of Georgia? Mr. Palmer? Mr. Palmer votes no. Mr. Dunn? Mr. Dunn votes no. Mr. Crenshaw? Mr. Joyce? Mr. Joyce votes no. Mr. Weber? Mr. Weber votes no. Mr. Allen? Mr. Allen votes no. Mr. Balderson? Mr. Balderson votes no. Mr. Fulcher? Mr. Fulcher votes no. Mr. Pfluger? Mrs. Harshbarger? Mrs. Harshbarger votes no. Mrs. Miller-Meeks? Mrs. Miller-Meeks votes no. Mrs. Kamick? Mrs. Kamick votes no. Mr. Obernolte? Mr.